Wilson Bethel stars as Bullseye, aka Benjamin Poindexter, in Marvel's Daredevil. He made his first appearance as the villain in Season 3 on Netflix before coming back in 2025's Born Again Season 1, and in this new iteration of the show, specifically in Season 2, getting some of his best material in my humble opinion. With the conclusion of this latest season, something I've been itching to discuss, which is of course Bullseye, and where they take him in Born Again Season 2. I want to discuss the character from Season 3 up until now and how he progressed and changed. Of course, we did get another live action adaptation thanks to Colin Farrell back in the 2000s, who is portrayed very differently compared to Bethel. Maybe that's a topic for another day. I do want to touch on the comic counterpart though. Obviously, Daredevil's arch nemesis alongside the Kingpin, and is defined by his superhuman precision, putting Clint Barton to shame. Anything in this man's hands becomes a weapon that he can use with unreal force and accuracy. Obviously, this kind of makes him the perfect assassin. Initially, he wasn't much more than a gimmick villain, but after Frank Miller took on the character, he transformed into a much more complex villain, driven by sadism just as much as professionalism. Bullseye is a character who enjoys the horrific things he does. Throughout the comics, his rivalry with Daredevil seemed more orientated around the love of the game, enjoying the chase of someone almost as skilled as he is. But after multiple losses, and even Daredevil being the cause for his paralysis in the comics, this rivalry and hatred builds and builds into something that also drives him alongside being an assassin for hire. So Bethel's portrayal in live action is actually pretty different. Our first meeting with him in Season 3 sees his lethal accuracy immediately, one-tapping everyone the same way I used to whenever I loaded up COD, a feat that Fisk witnessed and is clearly very impressed by. At this time, Dex is working for the FBI, and over the course of the season, Fisk would see Dex's vulnerabilities and begin to weaponize him for his own gain. What I think Daredevil has always done so well with its villains is how it doesn't treat them like objective villains. They are always presented as real people with real motivations that are understood and complex, allowing us to understand why they operate the way they do. Fisk takes his chance to try and open Dex up, claiming to feel in debt to him after he saved his life, and even offers condolences for the fallen agents that died during the ambush. Dex refuses to engage at first, but then we sit with him in a psych evaluation. We see his early emotional reactive nature when he starts feeling accused over how he acted the night of the ambush. He seems to almost be threatened in this scene, especially when the doctor says he's on duty despite the fact he's supposed to be off. I think this is an early sign of how he feels when his rigid structure is at risk. We will get into this soon, it's a core component of his character. But during this evaluation, he explains how he has a woman in his life named Julie, someone that makes him feel unjudged and welcome, someone he can talk to about his emotions. The next time we see Dex, he's sat alone in a car, literally stalking Julie. It's incredibly eerie as he watches from afar and seemingly eats the very same sandwich that she does. His statement about her being someone special may only be a one-way street from his end. His life structure seems to be threatened again when he's the only one asked to leave, as the FBI intend to have a private interview with Fisk regarding the ambush, which Dex obviously saved him from. It turns out there was a discrepancy between Dex's reports and the evidence on scene. Now, what I didn't mention about that first shootout was the fact the Albanians had actually surrendered to the FBI, dropped their weapons, yet Dex had shot them anyway. Obviously, he didn't state this in his evaluation, but through watching the tape of Fisk's interview, Fisk actually corroborates Dex's version of events, saying that Dex gave them the chance to surrender, but they didn't. This throws Dex through a loop. I mean, why is this convict doing him these favors? This is the beginning of Fisk's 4D chess game that would take place over the entire season. Fisk identifies the fragile mind of Poindexter and attempts to use that for his own gain. Learning about Julie and how Dex has a heavy reliance on her, Fisk hires her at the downstairs bar that he's living above. It was in episode 5 that we learned about Dex's past. It's where we learn he met Julie working at a suicide hotline, and through her kindness after his therapist died, he made her a part of his structure that keeps him looking normal to the outside world. But through the flashbacks, we understand what really lays underneath Dex. We find out he murdered his baseball coach out of rage, as well as killing birds with stones as a child. Through his therapy flashbacks, which are excellently crafted as Fisk listens to the audio tapes from his therapy sessions, learning the inner workings of Dex's mind, it adds an uncomfortable, eerie layer to this entire sequence. Fisk literally has an open window into Poindexter's mind, and it is quite uncomfortable knowing what Fisk can do with this. We learn that Dex has borderline personality disorder as well as psychopathic tendencies. We learn the only way he can live is with these structural pillars in place. He needs a North Star to guide him, a key figure to focus on, and that's what Julie has unknowingly become. Obviously his job is also a part of this, so right now, the FBI. The interesting thing that we kind of figure out though, is that this is all a face Dex presents to fit in. That's the first thing his therapist teaches him, practicing empathy. He learns what the right thing to say is in the right scenario, and how to act as if he feels these things, even though he doesn't. It's through routines and these strict guidelines that allow him to keep that mask up. We see it slip at times, such as when he is working at the hotline.
This asshole stepdad of yours has given you so much grief. Why take your own life? Why not?
But this is why he keeps everything so pristine and has these OCD tendencies too. It's all to present his idea of normal. So going back to Dex running into Julie at the bar, he's caught off guard, and he puts it together in their conversation that it must have been Fisk who offered her the role. She was offered a huge sum of money just to leave her job now and start working here. As they have a catch up over a beverage, he lets slip the extra information he has on Julie though, accidentally showcasing the fact that he's basically been stalking her for a while now. Understandably, this disturbs her and she leaves, and this leads to Dex having a total mental breakdown. The facade vanishes and he wrecks his own apartment. The camera spirals just as he does around the room, up until he tries listening to his old therapy sessions in an attempt to regain control. The following episode he confronts Fisk about hiring Julie, but his spiral continues as the bulletin print a hit piece on Dex, pinning him as the scapegoat of everything the FBI did wrong with the Fisk transfer. Slowly, every pillar that was keeping Dex up is crumbling right in front of him. As mentioned, Fisk is the one that presented Dex as a scapegoat. Obviously, Dex does not know that at this stage. Not only losing that parasocial relationship with Julie, but losing his job, something he's undeniably good at with his talents. It's all fallen apart in a matter of days, instigated by Wilson Fisk in the hopes of distracting the city with a villain so there is less attention on himself. This results, of course, in Dex hitting rock bottom. In his apartment with a gun in his hand, we hear the increasing sound of buzzing and dialogue prompting Dex to act, until the phone rings. Fisk makes himself the exact thing that Dex needs right now. A guiding light, someone to accept him and be that North Star, which leads to Dex following his words. It's actually pretty scary how effectively Fisk is able to drive Dex to this point, all in an effort to use him as a weapon. He shapes Dex into the city's new villain and strengthens that by giving him a Daredevil suit, so at the same time destroying Daredevil's reputation. Throughout the remainder of the season, Fisk continues to use Dex for his own purposes. Tragically, he orders the murder of Julie, knowing that Dex continued to try and reach out, isolating him further, making himself Dex's only option to go to. This results in him essentially becoming more unhinged. He burns his audio tapes and puts all his eggs in Fisk's basket because there's nothing else he feels he can do now. Everything he's been told all of his life to hide is now being forced out by Fisk, and Fisk is telling him to embrace that. This season, in many ways, acts as Bullseye's origin story. After the events at the church, he is swamped with the weight of failing in his mission to kill Karen Page, and then the aftermath with the response from the NYPD and civilians, letting out a primal scream in the back of an FBI truck with no idea what else to do. And even Fisk ends up pushing him away after this incident, destroying his mind even further, basically accusing Dex of not being good enough after he built him up all this way. He isolated him, acted as the guiding lights, and then shut him down when things didn't go the way that he needed. But Dex remained adamant to prove himself. He manages to stay in Fisk's good books by reclaiming the rabbit in a snowstorm painting by killing its owner, and then in the penultimate episode, killing Raina Dean. He claimed in that confrontation to feel more himself than ever, not chained by the face he tries to present, able to act on his violent impulses with praise from Fisk. He's completely unable to see how he's been manipulated. That is until the next episode, the finale, where Matt reveals what actually happened to Julie. This snaps Dex and leads to his arrival at Fisk's wedding to kill Vanessa. What ensues is the great climax of season 3, the three-way brawl between Fisk, Poindexter, and Murdoch. We all know it, we all love it, and I love the sequence. We get to see just how lethal he is with random objects in this ballroom, and we kind of see just how fucked up Dex is at this point. His mind has been twisted sideways, backwards, upwards, downwards. His attempt on Vanessa's life ultimately fails, with Fisk paralyzing him in the fight, and the final scene of the show actually sees an operation taking place on Dex. Now, in the comics, he actually ends up with an adamantium spine. I'm not actually sure if we've been told what this is in the MCU, but presumably that's how he survives the fall in Born Again. So now let's discuss Dex's role in Born Again. Obviously there's a pretty big time jump between when we last see him up until now, and chronologically his first appearance is at some kind of mental asylum where Vanessa meets with him. The medication he's been forced on has evidently left him a shell of himself, unable to really think. This unfortunately is the weakest point in the character's progression, because now he's been manipulated by Wilson and Vanessa Fisk separately. Whilst Born Again Season 2 adds a few more layers to what happened here, I still struggle to believe Vanessa would come to him specifically, even after the passage of time. But the way I kind of see it now is that Vanessa was desperate for this to be done quickly, so she went to the first person that came to mind who would be efficient, and that was Poindexter. That of course leads to the events of the first episode where he murders Foggy Nelson and fights with Daredevil throughout Josie's bar. We see a version of Dex who has confidence, taking pride in how good he is at what he does. My favourite thing about the sequence is seeing, similarly to the fights in Season 3, just how anything can be a weapon for this man. But it feels like it's increased somewhat. Anything he grabs is lethal. He of course ends up being pushed off the building by Matt miraculously surviving and eventually being sentenced to life in prison the following year. When Fisk got power as mayor, he moved Poindexter into Gen Pop, a different part of the prison where he would likely be killed. So he calls Matt as the lawyer in the hopes of his help. It's phenomenal to see Cox and Bethel sharing the screen, and that tension is palpable. I love how Dex pushes all of Matt's moral buttons, resulting in the head smash, which in turn led to his escape through using his own tooth to kill someone. Absolutely absurd jaw strength. I'm very curious when he learned he could do this. As I say, he escapes and plans to shoot Wilson Fisk, but as he takes the shot, Matt takes the bullet. We see his reaction of sheer confusion, as the moment mirrors their earlier conversation as he pressed Matt on how good men defend their worst enemies.
You know, in another life, you might be defending me. Because that's what good men do, right? Defend their worst enemies.
So next time we see Dex is months later, under the Mayor Fisk regime, where he actually saves Matt from the Vigilante Task Force. An excellent moment that sets up his arc in this second season very well. In Season 2, Dex seems to have set himself on his own path, with a single goal of settling the score. We see him in the first 3 episodes just going rogue, killing Task Force agents, and stalking his prey, Vanessa Fisk. The person Wilson cares about most, and someone else who used him for their own gain. In a way, a part of the grand design was Vanessa getting Dex out, and that led to the event that should have killed Dex. And on top of that, Fisk is obsessing, clamping down on vigilantes, and he labels Bullseye as one of those. And considering he's done the same for the likes of Daredevil, Dex now in a very twisted way sees this and believes he's on the right side of the fight.
Something I forgot to mention in my initial recording as well is how Vanessa is kind of suffering from extreme paranoia over Dex in the latest season. I think that's yet another way to reinforce just how much of a villain he remains. Recently, Wilson Bethel in an interview was speaking about how he doesn't see Dex as an anti-hero, which makes me feel somewhat validated for my takes on him joining the Thunderbolts later on. But everything with Vanessa, I think, is really cool, and on a more personal level. For as much as a diabolical villain Vanessa is, it would make sense that she would be scared of this, since she kind of set the events of Born Again into gear.
Episode 4 of the latest season is focused pretty much entirely on Bullseye. He has returned to presenting a facade in his day-to-day. We see him making the perfect bedroom, keeping up his appearances with neighbours, and then we follow him to a diner where he calls the task force claiming to have seen Frank Castle, but in reality is set up to ambush the agents, and he brutally takes out the entire team. Starting out with a straw going into someone's eye before using cutlery and other miscellaneous items in the diner to kill these men, even killing the very last guy with a lobster. It's sensational. All the while, New York State of Mind plays, and thanks to his interaction with one of the customers, we get to really understand this guy's newfound perspective of himself.
I'm one of the good guys.
When Matt finally catches up to Poindexter, he he does claim to be on his side, and now feels like an ample time to mention how Born Again is definitely a lot more comic booky than the Netflix run, and I mean that as a positive, as that allows Dex a bit more freedom to do things like use a lobster as a weapon, and being able to ricochet a CD with such force that could kill a man. Somehow, the show manages to still make it feel grounded. I think it does help Dex specifically because it just makes him feel stronger. During this fight though, he breaks the facade yet again to get Matt's proper attention by taking the sweet old lady we saw earlier hostage at gunpoint. This is one of the many times we are shown Bullseye isn't a hero. No matter the wider context and circumstances of what's going on this season, his sense of morality and right and wrong is completely twisted. He starts yelling about one good deed before discussing what Vanessa had him do, and he explains how he had to go through that to escape, get his mind back. The price that had to be paid for his freedom was Foggy's life, and so now, after the events of Born Again Season 1, Dex believes he can level the scales by killing Vanessa Fisk. Dex has concluded that it's just an equation. As he would later explain in more depth, he believed he survived the night at Josie's for this very reason. Killing one person is no different to saving another to him. It's just maths in this guy's head. So, Dex does go through with it. In a tense, epic climactic finale to this same episode, Wilson wins his boxing match and Bullseye shows up, one-shotting every agent in his way just to show how lethal he is before attempting to take out Vanessa, which he ultimately does, despite taking a bullet in the process. Right as Wilson prepares to finish the job, Matt shows up, actually saving him. The following episode, we get the full insight into where Dex is at right now, and I've kind of already explained most of it. He feels at peace now with his potential death. He's leveled the scales, everything is balanced. But as I've discussed in this prior video, Matt ensures Dex's survival despite his fucked up morality, and in the very same church he tried to kill Karen years prior, he showcases his acceptance of himself. He knows what him and Matt do is scratching an itch one way or the other, and he's now embraced that, knowing it's not about who they kill or who they save. The true Ben Poindexter is Bullseye. The lack of empathy, the need to hyper-focus on something, using his talent is what has proven to give him meaning. And whilst I'll come back to the North Star element shortly, the trauma he's experienced from childhood, being manipulated in Season 3 and Born Again Season 1, his mental health issues at the foundation of his character have all led to him having this perspective of himself. Despite Karen's temptation to end his misery, Matt refuses to allow it and actually ends up releasing Dex, making it clear that he will not be forgiven, but that if he wanted to do one good deed, he had something for him, and that allows Dex to go out on his own. I love in the finale when he comes across someone Fisk hired to pose as him in order to snipe Matt, but the real Bullseye of course shows up. It's such a funny interaction as he calls him a poser before going on his merry way. The final time we see Bullseye is on the plane with Mr. Charles. It's revealed that previously Charles had Luke Cage doing his dirty work, but upon the King's return, he sought out Dex in replacement. So where does this now leave the character? In Season 3, despite there definitely being similarities between the adaptation and the comic counterpart, they were quite different. Bethel's portrayal is much more nuanced and, to be perfectly honest, more complex. Whilst in a way he does serve the role of an assassin in Season 3, we never really see him as that shooter for hire necessarily. But I think that's basically where we're now left off, hired by Mr. Charles for whatever missions are needed overseas. I'm very excited to see what all of that is really about, but the impression I got from how the season closed is that he's going to be taking up that assassin profession full-time, essentially. The exciting thing is now that the rivalry with Daredevil has been established and already been explored pretty well. Hopefully it's inevitable that these two cross paths again, and they have all that baggage, all that past to play with. That tension will always persist despite his pseudo-redemption arc this season. People were saying this by episode 4, and I wanted to see where everything went before really talking about it. Bullseye is probably my favourite character of this new season. The show is excellent at showcasing how, in his view, he is on a redemption arc, but it's clear in reality it's a twisted attempt based on his perception of what redemption means. And I think that's why it works so well. Because of how well crafted this character has been from the very beginning, it makes total sense that he would view his life in this way. I'm also very grateful that despite him at times being on the positive side of events this season, he remains a terrifying, threatening force. Bethel is absolutely phenomenal. His physicality and line delivery is so good, I really can't fault it. The action sequences really use his inhuman accuracy to their benefit to show how lethal he is, and for me, leaves him now in such a prime position to become more of a mainstay in the MCU overall. I think Bullseye is most interesting when he's operating alone, at least physically. I get the impression Charles will essentially serve as that North Star in a way. guiding him to each target. I think he almost saw Daredevil as the North Star in this season. However, I must say, amongst heavy current speculation of him joining the Thunderbolts, I think that could be a very interesting way to take the character, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, but if I'm honest, I wouldn't want him to be a permanent member. Even though the other members of the Thunderbolts are more morally ambiguous than our normal Avengers, they're still pretty much heroes rather than villains, whereas Bullseye is just a villain in another league. But I'd love to see it explored nonetheless. It's absolutely insane that Born Again initially didn't include him. I'm so relieved that they remedied that. So let me know what you guys think of Bethel's Bullseye portrayal and how you found his arc in Season 2, and where do you think he's going to go next? He was in this realm from Season 3 alone, but after the latest season, he has really solidified himself as the villain, and he's joined the ranks of D'Onofrio's Kingpin, Brolin's Thanos, Tennant's Kilgrave.